Hello everybody, today we will be learning about Edward Thorndike. The connectivism is the learning theory of Thorndike represents the original SR framework of behavioral psychology. Learning is the result of associations forming between stimuli responses. Such associations or habits become strengthened or weakened by the nature and frequency of the SR pairings. Edward Lee Thorndike was born August 31, 1874 in Williamsburg, Massachusetts. He was the son of Edward R. and Abby B. Thorndike, a Methodist minister in Lowell, Massachusetts. Thorndike grew up in a household where excellence was expected, for the children of a minister were to be models for the congregation in all matters. In academic performance, the Reverend Thorndike's children complied, all earning excellent grades and winning scholarships which made college studies possible. In addition, all established academic careers. Ashley, a professor of English, Lynn as a historian, and Mildred as a high school English teacher. Eventually, all three Thorndike brothers taught at Columbia University. Edward Thorndike's children continued this scholastic brilliance but turned like father from literary to scientific and mathematical careers. All four children earned PhD degrees, Elizabeth Francis in mathematics, Edward Moulton and Allen in physics, and Robert Ladd in psychology. While he was a very successful student, he initially disliked his first psychology course. Like many other psychologists of his time, Thorndike's interest in psychology grew after reading the classic book, The Principles of Psychology by William James. When he graduated from Wesleyan University in 1895 with a Bachelor's of Science degree, Thorndike then enrolled at Harvard University to study English and French literature. During his first semester, however, he took a psychology course taught by William James, and by his second trimester he had decided to switch his study concentration over to psychology. He later moved on to Columbia University, where he studied under the guidance of psychologist James McKean Cattell. While still a graduate student at Columbia, Thorndike began an association with Robert S. Woodworth, with whom he studied transfer of learning. In a paper published in 1901, Thorndike and Woodworth found that learning in one area does not facilitate learning in other areas. As professor of educational psychology at Columbia from 1904 to 1940, Thorndike contributed to the development of a more scientifically grounded and efficient type of schooling. He emphasized the use of statistics in social science research, chiefly through his handbook. At age 26 in 1990, Thorndike married Elizabeth Moulton. They had 4 children, among them Francis, who became a mathematician. Edward Thorndike spent nearly his entire career at Teachers College in Columbia University. His work on comparative psychology in the learning process led to the theory of connectivism and helped lay the scientific foundation for educational psychology. He worked on solving industrial problems such as employee exams and testing. He was a member of the board of Psychological Corporation and served as president of the American Psychological Association in 1912. A survey in 2012 ranked Thorndike the 9th most cited psychologist of the 20th century. He had a power impact on reinforcement theory and behavior analysis, providing the basic framework for empirical laws in behavior psychology with his law of effect. He was the father of educational psychology law of effect behavior modification. Thorndike composed 3 different books to assist teachers with the word of reading instruction. While such men as John Dewey and Robert M. Hutchins influenced the physiology of education, Thorndike and those whom he inspired wrote reading and arithmetic books for pupils, school dictionaries and spelling lists, tests and pedagogical guidebooks, and teacher manuals. Because, however, it was far more difficult to assess influence in the operations of many thousands of American classrooms than to analyze ideas in the words of educational theorists, Thorndike's contributions are taken largely for granted. Thorndike's work would eventually be a major influence to B.F. Skinner and Clark Hull. Skinner, like Thorndike, put animals in boxes and observed them to see what they were able to learn. The learning theories of Thorndike and Pavlov were later synthesized by Clark Hull. His work on motivation and attitude formation directly affected studies on human nature as well as social order. Thorndike's research drove comparative psychology for 50 years and influenced countless psychologists over that period of time and even still today. He died in the early morning of August 9, 1949 at Montrose, New York, a few days short of his 75th birthday. He was survived by his wife Elizabeth Moulton, whom he had married in 1900, and their 4 children. Thorndike's work is important because it put the study of learning and education on a scientific footing for the first time, said James Corter, chair of Human Development Department. Thorndike proposed that laws of learning established by animal experiments might show us how to better promote human learning. Thorndike developed the first 3 laws of learning: readiness, exercise, and effect. They provide additional insight into what makes people learn most effectively. In the experiments that defined instrumental conditioning, Thorndike placed young cats inside wooden cages called puzzle boxes, from which they could escape by working a mechanism inside the box, such as a foot treadle. Thorndike observed that the cats tried out a variety of instinctive responses before accidentally hitting on the correct response. Nor did they show insight. Instead of stepping on a treadle immediately on the next trial, cats repeated erroneous responses, although the correct response emerged sooner as trials progressed until it became dominant. Thorndike described the process of learning as a gradual stamping out of connections between the box stimuli and the incorrect instinctive responses, and the gradual stamping in of connections between sand and the correct R. Hence, Thorndike called his theory of learning connectivism, a behavioral version of associatism. Major contributions to adult education. Applied animal education to human education, which was the cat in the box experiments. Constructed scale to measure children's handwriting. Constructed table of the word frequency in English. Expanded the American school of thought known as functionalism. Expanded the understanding of the constructs of intelligence. Professional organizations that Edward Thorndike was in. It was the American Association for Adult Education, American Association for the Advancement of Science, American Council on Education, American Psychological Association, Motion Picture Research Committee, National Academy of Sciences, New York Academy of Science, Psychometric Society, and Society for the Advancement of Education. And these were the books that Edward Thorndike wrote. He had many. And these are some pictures of Edward Thorndike. And the first picture, of course, is the cat in the box experiment. And this is my bibliography page. I got all of my sources on here. And I hope y'all all liked my presentation, and I hope that y'all learned more about Edward Thorndike. Thank you.